Suzuki Baleno Review. Suzuki must by now be well used to the idea that it isn't fated to be like other car makers. It has made two concerted attempts to sell what we might consider to be a typical family use, full-sized hatchback in both Europe and the US. But before the Baleno came the original Baleno, a decent but typically unadventurous model, available in hatch, saloon and estate bodies, that was launched in 1995. Built on a stretched Swift platform, it was the car intended to propel Suzuki into the car-making mainstream, which, as you may have noticed, it spectacularly failed to do. But should we regret that failure, when Suzuki has instead grown to be one of the global car industry's true specialists? It is famously independent, having bought back only last year the shares formerly sold as part of an unsuccessful joint venture with Volkswagen. It is a renowned expert in making superminis and small 4x4s, and it's a roaring success in some of the world's most important developing markets. Suzuki wouldn't trade what it has today for what it evidently desired 2 decades ago even if it could. This road test subject is highly symbolic of that change in outlook and newfound maturity. It's an all-new Baleno but, rather than another golf-sized hatchback, this one's a supermini through and through. Built at Maruti Suzuki in India for global export markets and on an all-new platform that'll be used across the maker's full range of small cars, the Baleno is intended as a more rational, practical choice than the smaller Swift. It's big on space, big on equipment and equally big on value, and still a recognizable Suzuki. It also comes to market with 2 interesting new engines, a 1.2-liter 4-cylinder petrol mild hybrid with sub 100 grams/km CO2 emissions and a turbocharged 1.0-liter 3-cylinder petrol unit that Suzuki expects most buyers to plump for. Most of us would agree that there are things we'd like Suzuki to continue doing in its own particular way and other areas in which it could afford to converge a bit more with accepted European convention. Knowing how and where it must continue to be different will be key to expanding its foothold in the European market. We expect Suzuki Superminis to be light, for example. It's something that has contributed to the dynamism, efficiency and all-round appeal of the current Swift and could do so again with the Baleno. Because, built on a new platform made of higher-grade steels than its sister cars and requiring fewer reinforcements, this new 5-door hatchback weighed just 920 kilograms on our scales. And it did so in spite of dimensions that make it large by class standards, longer and wider than a Skoda Fabia, Ford Fiesta and Volkswagen Polo and beaten for outright size only by the very biggest cars in the class. But we don't expect Suzuki to aim for styling allure inspired by the fashionable premium Supermini set. The Baleno's appearance is a clear attempt at European design sophistication, and, at least in places, a misguided one. With less decoration, the car might have conjured the modern, smart, understated impression that most of its styling seems to be working towards. But there's too much chrome effect plastic to make it able to pass muster in the context of European tastes. The extra-wide chrome bar running the full width of the tailgate is simply too flashy, and the chrome door handles, a feature of SZ5 trim only, should you want to avoid them, are equally overdone. Suspension is via struts at the front and a torsion beam at the rear, while power comes from a choice of 89 bhp 1.2-liter 4-cylinder dual-jet and 110 bhp 1.0-liter 3-cylinder booster-jet petrol engines. The former is partnered with the starter generator and extra-large capacity lithium-ion battery of an economy-boosting mild hybrid setup, christened SHVS, while the latter uses a turbo and direct fuel injection. A 5-speed manual gearbox is standard with both engines, while a 6-speed automatic transmission is an option on the 3-cylinder turbo engine only. In opting for a small capacity, 3-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine for the relative advantages on performance, drivability, fuel economy and zestiness of character that it provides over a larger, atmospheric 4-cylinder unit, the Baleno joins a long list of rivals that have already made the switch. Suzuki's new turbocharged 1.0-liter booster jet engine is hardly a trendsetter, then, but it is every bit as good as most of the ultra-modern inline triples we must compare it with, at least in terms of its gutsiness and response, its willingness to rev and its fuel economy. That's less true in terms of overall refinement, perhaps, but when you weigh up that list and consider that it's delivered on a car available for the Baleno's price, you have to admire Suzuki's achievement. The firm is notoriously pessimistic with its performance claims, so the fact that we beat the Baleno's official 0 to 62 miles per hour claim of 11.4 seconds shouldn't come as a surprise, but in repeatedly recording a sub 10.0 seconds 0 to 60 miles per hour time and averaging 9.8 seconds in two directions, the Baleno proves it's no slouch. It took just 9.7 seconds to go from 30 to 70 miles per hour through the gears. That's closer to the pace of a Mini Cooper than the 89 bhp Mazda 2 we tested last year, a car that ought to be the closer rival, based on price. The Baleno's engine is a little rough and chuggy at idle, just as all transversely mounted three-cylinder motors tend to be as a result of the rocking motion that their firing order imparts. But it spins into a fairly reserved but industrious thrum which, although not as well isolated as in some of its rivals, is perfectly tolerable. It has throttle response as crisp as that of the better examples of the breed, and it's efficient, returning better than 55 miles per gallon for our economy testers where plenty of less powerful small cars struggle to pass 50 miles per gallon. We had hoped for slick and assured control weights, because the Swift gives them to you. But the shift quality of the Baleno's 5-speed manual gearbox is light and springy, and the keener you are to move the lever through the gate, the less satisfactory it feels. Braking performance is respectable, although the 185/55 R16 Bridgestone Ecopia tires on which the Baleno comes don't exactly maul the road surface. In the dry, the car stopped from 70 miles per hour in 49.8 meters. A poorer result than the 2-ton Ford Edge we figured on the same day. From a sub 1-ton car, you might well expect better.